Let's go live now to our political editor, Andrew Clennell, who joins us here at the desk. We're waiting to see this announcement and the detail of it this morning from the Health Minister, Greg Hunt. $2.4 billion, Andrew Clennell. It's a great headline figure, but this government has a habit of announcing these big headline figures and underspending.
Yeah, we'll see some more detail today, I think, and I expect hundreds of millions, as I flagged yesterday, for the aged care sector to deal with this crisis as well. But yes, it'd be nice to have some detail. We know that with the bushfire recovery, I think that's one of the things you're alluding to, Laura, $2 billion and about $300 million spent so far. So they start off with this global announcement, and then it takes a while to colour the thing in. I think the difference with the stimulus, when it makes part of it, I think, is that rather than have a system like with the bushfires where people need to apply and tend not to, probably because they're confused or they don't know about it, money's just going to be handed out to industries. You know, export costs are going to be slashed as part of the stimulus. Cash payments are going to go to small business, New Start recipients, pensioners. So the cash is actually going to go out the door, and that's going to be billions, and that means that you will actually see some of the money flow, as we haven't seen with the bushfire recovery, and that's necessary, of course, for the government to stave off recession.
When you talk about this $2.4 billion package today, I know you said that they're still thirsty for some details at the moment, but when you're talking about aged care, what are we talking about there? What sort of help would it?
Well, I wish I knew, but I think if you can speculate, perhaps quarantine facilities, perhaps extra staff, perhaps extra testing ability. Those are the sorts of things that would be required. Maybe even separate premises are required to quarantine people. Let's wait and see. But there's absolutely no doubt that the biggest fear in terms of the outbreak of this virus are those facilities. And we've seen it a bit already up the road here. And I think the fear is that we'll see a lot more. Once you get an outbreak going through one of those facilities, you've got, you know, a lot of deaths on your hands.
Well, in the elderly, that's where the death toll is.
Yeah, that's right.
Those
absolutely.
Aged over 80, yeah.
You've still got to find where these people are to staff such facilities, and a lot of people in the aged care, the health sector, are overseas workers. Good question today for the government about how they bring these people in. Also today, as part of that, $30 million on an information campaign. They're a little bit faster in rolling out an information campaign after the bushfire crisis than they are this time round. Do we know why?
Yeah, I don't, but there's absolutely no doubt you make a good point there that people need as much information as possible, including, I think, some sort of national address from the Prime Minister spelling out a few of these things, because again, we're seeing mixed messages. Now, Greg Hunt basically said on the weekend, if you have a cold, go and get tested. He's pushing back against that this morning and saying, look, I said if you'd been in contact with someone who's had it, and if you'd been overseas and you had cold-like symptoms, and he said he was taken out of context, but nevertheless that quote ran. It seems to have caused a rush on hospitals, basically. And now we're being told by Brendan Murphy, the Chief Medical Officer, yesterday, look, if you have a cold, don't get tested. So when do you get tested? I mean,
that's right.
you know, some clarity around this is really quite important, and maybe the medical officers just don't have the answer on it. When you look at Missy Higgins' dad, runny nose, and he had the thing the whole time.
So the left hand's not talking to the right hand here when it comes to the feds in the States. I mean, we had that, didn't we, about 2 weeks ago when Brad Hazzard was saying that that you shouldn't be shaking hands, you know, elbow bumps and foot bumps or whatever, but then Brendan Murphy was saying, no, handshakes are fine. You can do that for
glad
greetings.
to hear it.
Yeah.
But look, I mean...
But then coupled with that, you know, if you've got symptoms, then you should or shouldn't be going in this line. So there is a disconnect there.
Well, the ones who seem to be ad-libbing or misstepping, in fairness, are the politicians, not the chief medical officers. And the chief medical officers are talking every day. But I think it shows the politicians who say they're heeding the advice need to stick very rigidly to that advice, don't they? Otherwise... you see panic, and we already have.
Yep, we're going to see the stimulus package unveiled this week. It has been signed off by Cabinet, but probably more like tomorrow or Friday. It's going to be announced. The $10 billion starting to sound like just the start of it. When we talk about targeted and scalable, I thought it was really interesting earlier this week that Josh Frydenberg was pointing to the budget in just 2 months' time. And what do they do in budgets? Well, that's where structural changes are made. Do you think that's a trend?
That's right, but I think the only structural change I've heard of so far is in terms of business tax incentives like the instant asset write-off, widening that. I think it's more likely we'll just get another cash splash in the budget, to be honest. I don't think we'll see much structural change. They seem... they don't want to give the states money for payroll tax relief. They don't want to bring forward tax cuts. Scott Morrison keeps talking about the economy bouncing back. Expenditure Review Committee heard yesterday this is a 6-month problem, hopefully, and then it can bounce back. So I just think we'll see another stimulus package, more cash splash measures in 8 weeks, but I have little doubt that will be occurring. I mean, their rhetoric is, oh, it might need to occur, might not, but I really think the budget will see a lot more of those giveaways. Sorry?
There's a chance they undershoot here.
Yes, there is. But there's that 8-week buffer saves them in effect. It's handy for them, the budget's the next marker where they can do something.
The June quarter is the big problem now, isn't it? That starts from April 1. I mean, that's the need, the speed and the way you need to expedite this.
Yeah, I think Matthias Cormann told you last week they're going to try and get the cash out the door after April 1, and I think that'll be happening. So they'll be hoping to somehow not go negative there. It'll be very, very difficult. But, you know, budget's mid-May. There's capacity to throw out more cash there, throw the kitchen sink at not having another negative quarter.
Are they talking privately? Are they talking recession? Are they fearing it's a real possibility?
Well, they're not ruling it out even publicly. I mean, Scott Morrison asked about it yesterday. He doesn't rule it out publicly. In fact, he says it could be worse than the GFC. I think he's laying the ground to some extent. I think he deeply fears it, and he wants to point out that it's not of his making, as you would as a politician.
But I mean, on that point too, doesn't that in itself create fear? He's talking about everyone should calm down and relax, but then if he's saying something that's as big as the GFC, then hello?
I was puzzled by it, to be honest. I had the same reaction as you. And about the mixed messaging. 1 minute you're saying we don't need a stimulus like the GFC. 1 minute you're saying it's modest, then it's substantial, then it's significant. You know, Scott Morrison's been Prime Minister a couple of years, but only a couple of years. John Howard had a ropey first couple of years. I think we're seeing, to be frank, a bit of inexperience here in dealing with these matters, and that's the big test for him after the fires, where how people see him in terms of competence. The mixed messages don't help. It'll be an interesting couple of weeks ahead.
Yeah, we need detail. We're going to see that detail a little later on this morning when it comes to the medical side of this package, at least $2.4 billion. A few questions I think will be asked in that media conference, Andrew. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We'll
Good
see
talk to you,
soon.
mate.